Hey guys, today we are going to discuss on chapter 7, that is inflation, part of the curriculum, principle economics for engineer, subject code HU801. Inflation. What is inflation? Mainly, as we all know, inflation is the rises of prices in commodities. We all are familiar with that. Definitely, that's inflation. But in economics, we say inflation is not only the rises in prices of commodity, but also the fall in the purchasing power of currency. Say, for instance, today, if a liter of milk cost you 50 rupees, the same 1 liter milk may be costing you 100 rupees at the end of 5 years. So, not only 1 liter milk has prices has risen, simultaneously the purchasing power of rupees 50 has gone down because with rupees 50 you cannot buy 1 liter milk anymore. So that is inflation. Again, I repeat, inflation is the rise in prices of commodity and fall in the purchasing power of currency. Now, what are the types of inflation? Mainly, there are three types: demand pull inflation, cost push inflation, and built in inflation. Let's begin with demand pull inflation. Demand pull inflation happens when there is more demand and less supply. Like, say, for instance, there is a big demand for hand sanitizer right now. And if there is no hand sanitizer available, then the prices will rise if the government is not controlling. This is what we mean by demand pull inflation, in the sense where demand is more than supply. Just opposite to it is cost push inflation, where there is more supply than demand. In the sense, the commodity is not at all demanded and supply is numerous. Like, say, for instance, during this pandemic, nobody is willing to fly or board a aircraft. So China has reduced down a huge reduced down in its prices of air flights. So that's what we mean by cost push inflation. Just opposite to demand pull inflation is cost push inflation. Third is built-in inflation. What is a built-in inflation? Built-in inflation happens when, say, for instance, when the government changes the monetary policies or there is more money supplied than required, then a built-in inflation happens. Also, apart from these three, maybe it might be like depending upon the speed of inflation, inflation can be categorized on four categories. Creeping inflation, when the inflation speed is very slow. Then you have walking inflation, of course, more than creeping but less than galloping inflation. Yes, you heard it right. Third is galloping inflation, when inflation rate is jumping, in a particular rate. Then the last is high inflation, where inflation increases rapidly during an uncertain situation, maybe a situation like this. So these are maybe four type of inflation depending upon the speed rate of inflation. Now here a question arises: what causes inflation, or what gives birth to inflation? Mainly there are five categories or five reasons. The first reason is definitely money supply. If there is excess money supply, then definitely it will lead to inflation. That is the reason the Reserve Bank of India controls the amount of money being printed or issued in our country. Money supply. Second is national debt. If a country's debt towards other countries or towards the world market increases, definitely the citizens has to bear that through taxation and pay that. This will also lead to increase in inflation, national debt. So money supply, national debt. Third and fourth is what we just discussed in types of inflation, in the sense demand pull inflation and cost push inflation. as I said, in both the cases where there is a change in money and when there is a change in production and there is a change in the demand of that production or that produced goods, that will definitely lead to demand pull inflation and cost pull inflation. The fifth reason is exchange rate. No country exists in isolation. Every country is somehow connected to all the other countries in the rest of the world. And the exchange rate of doing business also determines the inflation. Say, for instance, in a country like US, when we are exporting goods to US or importing goods from US, like very recently, India has sent medicines to US. So these all, the dollar rate in which it's being exchanged, this dollar rate will also determine our inflation. Fine. So mainly the five causes of inflation are, I repeat, money supply, second is national debt, third is demand pull inflation, fourth is cost push inflation, and fifth is your, what we call it as your exchange rate. Then also a part of this chapter, we have the effect of inflation in cash flows. Now you see, cash flows, we have discussed that in chapter 6 as well, are mainly two types: cash inflow and cash outflow, also known as positive and negative cash flows. Positive cash flows is when cash flows are coming in, and negative cash flows are when cash flows are going out. The cash flows are determined by inflation rate as well. That is the thing, we call it time value of money, and this time value has two parts: present value and future value. Say for instance, today if a thing is a price of rupees 500, will not remain 500 5 years later, future value. How it changes with inflation, this is recalculated to an annuity inflation rate. I'll send you an email note for this so that you understand how inflation affects cash flows. Thank you.